Welcome to the Interagency Committee on Sustainability and Green Procurement. I'm Roanne Destito. I'm Commissioner of Office of General Services. We co-chair this committee along with the Department of Environmental Conservation. On the eve of Earth Day, we are here to review and vote on accepting a report that details the steady progress New York State government has made toward the adoption of sustainable practices and green procurement under Executive Orders 4 and 18. We are here to propose new ways we can advance the goals of these orders. Executive Order 4 established an ambitious state green procurement and agency sustainability program that directs state agencies and authorities to consider a broad range of environmental and health criteria when purchasing commodities, services, as well as technology. Under Executive Order 18, state agencies are improving the environment and saving taxpayer dollars by greatly reducing the purchase and use of bottled water. Since these executive orders were issued and under Governor Cuomo's continued support for these environmental policies, state agencies have shown that sustainable practices do not cost more and, in fact, can save taxpayers money, especially when it comes to energy use and waste reduction. The second progress report for Executive Orders 4 and 18 documents that among state agencies and authorities, paper use decreased 43% since the 2008-9 fiscal year, saving the state $11.1 million over 4 years, and continuing to save a minimum of $6.2 million per year. Waste generation decreased 35%. Recycling rates have stayed strong at levels close to or surpassing the statewide recycling goal of 50%. In the 2011-12 fiscal year, 67% of waste generated was recycled. I'm proud to say that my own agency is reporting that the use of computers with the highest environmental ratings available that were purchased in the 2012 and 2013 years from contracts negotiated by OGS will result in $94 million in energy savings over the computer's lives while avoiding 3 million pounds of solid waste and reducing the use of toxic chemicals by 21,465 pounds. We'll be hearing a great deal more about the report later on, and with that said, I'd like to officially call this meeting to order and have everyone introduce themselves, and I'll turn to Ann Phillips on my left.
Hi, I'm Ann Phillips. I'm OGS Acting Counsel.
And I'll go to Darren.
I'm Darren DeRocha. I'm an Associate Counsel at Office of General Services.
I'm Beth Meir. I'm on the executive staff of the Department of Environmental Conservation, and I serve as our Commissioner's designee to co-chair this interagency committee.
Bob Ozera, DEC.
Kay Wilkie, Empire State Development.
Kathy Macri, New York State Environmental Facilities Corporation, and also chair of the training subcommittee for EO4.
Heather Saunders, NYSERDA. I serve as the designee for our president and CEO and also as our sustainability coordinator.
Jody Smits-Anderson, Director of Sustainability Programs for DASNY and Chair of the Sustainability Coordinator Subcommittee.
Lisa Brooks, the Division of the Budget.
And Chuck McElrath from the Department of Health.
Thank you. Let's just go right to our agenda, if you don't mind. And I'm going to go to the subcommittee updates. And Kathy Macri, I'm going to call on you to present a training discussion.
Sure thing.
Thank you.
The training subcommittee utilizes existing resources in our state agencies to provide outreach and training to sustainability coordinators, green team members, purchasing agents, facility and operations managers, and others so that we may reach the goals of EO4, EO18, and other related state goals. We collaborate with these other agencies to deliver information at very low or no cost. We do this through cost sharing, technology, and funding provided by partner agencies. In all of our outreach and training, we strive to educate state employees that sustainability is an integral part of our normal operations. Protecting public health and the environment in a cost-effective manner should be part of any decision related to purchasing and or maintenance. One of the most critical efforts that we have recently embarked upon is working to integrate green purchasing into our state's standard guidelines for procurement. The New York State Procurement Guidelines is the primary reference document for how to procure goods and services for all New York State agencies. Last fall, the Training Subcommittee presented a request to the New York State Procurement Council to consider integrating green purchasing into the procurement guidelines. The Procurement Council is currently developing a revised draft document, and the members of the Training Subcommittee have provided suggested revisions, and we look forward to the release of the draft document soon for consideration by the Procurement Council. And I would like to thank the members of the Procurement Council and the staff at OGS for their guidance throughout this process, and I would also like to thank my colleagues at the other agencies that worked on this effort. We also provided a number of other training and outreach offerings over the past few years. We provided GPRO, which is a trademark acronym for Green Professional Training and Certification, to 138 sustainability coordinators and facility managers in various locations around the state. There are several levels of GPRO certification, and each typically costs $500 per student. And they provide professional certification along with that. Due to collaboration amongst the subcommittee members and a cost-share agreement and funding from NYSERDA and the U.S. Green Building Council Upstate Chapter, agency sustainability coordinators and facility managers were able to register and obtain their certification at no cost. Feedback from attendees was extremely positive, and agency staff continue to contact us to request additional training opportunities of this type. This type of training allows staff to put into action the goals and to implement the activities that they need to reach the sustainability goals we've put into place. We also provided waste audit training through a number of hands-on demonstrations DEC provided over the past 4 years during audits at our buildings and other buildings. Waste and recyclables generated at the site are sorted, separated, and weighed. And this data helps agencies target their efforts and their progress toward EO4's waste reduction goals and to fact-check their data. And we provided webinars and hands-on demonstrations to help other state agencies conduct waste audits. We've provided presentations on sustainability and green procurement at the OGS purchasing forums, 2010, 11, and 2013, to approximately 300 purchasing agents and sustainability coordinators. We've also provided webinars on recycling, reuse, and reduction at state agencies. Excuse me. And for vendors, we have provided webinars to the New York State Pollution Prevention Institute staff so that they may better understand the procurement process in New York State. This education was provided by OGS and DEC with our support. The New York State Pollution Prevention Institute shares information about greening the supply chain with potential New York State vendors. And this May, at the purchasing forum, we will provide our first training presentation to vendors called Grow with Green Procurement. So I'm very excited about that opportunity to reach the vendors directly at the forum. We developed an e-learn course, which is a computer-based course that state employees can take at their desk. It's based on the recycling and waste reduction at EFC and in our building, but can be cloned and revised by any state agency for their purposes. And we disseminate information on other training efforts, both low cost or for cost, to sustainability coordinators, such as the State Electronics Challenge, webinars, and other types of sustainability exhibits and conferences. We held a sustainability coordinators forum to bring together sustainability coordinators and other staff to discuss best practices, obstacles, and solutions. And this was a very valuable way for folks to learn from each other's experience and to develop creative solutions, bring them back to their offices. And we continue to respond to phone calls and requests for information and on the site meeting or to attend conferences by sustainability coordinators and others upon request. So I appreciate greatly the assistance from all of our interagency partners and from the training subcommittee volunteers that provide their expertise and sometimes funding and other resources as well for us to help carry out this effort and to provide training and outreach to all state agencies. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
I'd like to, can I
Oh, sure,
add
Beth.
something? I'm
Sorry. I'm
Ryan.
sorry, Beth.
No, I just wanted to thank Kathy. I think particularly this effort to add green language to the guidelines is very exciting. It'll have big repercussions in procurement. And I wanted to thank her. I wanted to thank Jody Smith-Anderson and Heather Saunders and Nancy Goody from the Attorney General's office who's in our audience, because that team really did a lot of the wordsmithing, and Ann Phillips has been really helpful and open to that, so, and of course Darren, who looked at everything. So it's been a great collaborative effort. I just wanted to thank everybody.
Thank you, Beth. Thank you very much. And thank you, Kathy, for all that important information. And we're looking forward to our procurement conference and really having some new things for state agencies to and vendors to see. So thank you. Reporting, a subcommittee update will be given by Deb Jackson from DEC. Can you come up here?
Forward, yeah. I'm
She could sit-
Deb.
Right. There you go.
Thank you.
There
Good
you go.
afternoon. Yep. Welcome, everyone. I'm glad to be here. Reporting is obviously something that's important for everyone to do, and we have appreciated everybody's efforts that have been put forward to report. Just to give it a little bit of background, we started out, the reporting form was a long and cumbersome reporting form that was painful for us to write, and it was kind of painful for people to report on. And over the last few years, we have really worked very hard to streamline the report, and we're still working, as we speak, on streamlining the report even more so to make it easier for the agencies to report. One of the issues that we've always heard from were agencies that had less than 20 people, that report form was very long. So we are working and modifying that report form to make it easier for smaller agencies to report. Basically, we've worked with Kathy on training. We've had some waste audit training for agencies that were interested in doing waste audits. We've also had some training just on specifically on how to report and what they needed to report. And so far, the agencies that have done a good job reporting are finding that the consistency in the reporting form is making it easier for them to complete the report every year. So we're going to try to continue down that road with consistency and maybe shortening up as best we can. One of the things that we would like to see, and this is a great example of the revitalization of EO4, which we're very happy to see happen. We've had a decrease in the number of agencies that have reported over the last 3 years, and part of it was that agencies did not see anything come of the information that they provided, and we're getting a little bit concerned about providing all that information for having the information kind of just sit in our files. So with this report going out, this is an excellent opportunity to revitalize the reporting and to show the agencies that what they are doing in and of itself is so important, but the reporting is also important for the state of New York. We're hoping some of the bigger agencies that we haven't gotten information from will provide information, because it's very important to report, not just to show what we're doing at the state level, but also for the agencies to make improvements on what they're doing as an individual agency. We've always used this report as an outreach and education process so that they can see that what other agencies are doing, and they can highlight the things that they're doing. And that's all I have to report. If anyone has any questions, thank you.
Anyone?
I have to thank Darren again for helping us with the form, but the person that I'm going to thank a lot today who's not here is Howard Zwickel. Howard went through every inch of that reporting form and really helped us a lot in editing it, so thank you, Howard.
Thank you, Beth. I was going to say that also, that The modification of the reporting tool was a pet project of Howard Zwickel, who was our general counsel, and Ann's very aptly taken his place. So we want to thank him, if he's listening.
We'll send him the tape.
Yeah, we'll send it to him. Procurement, Beth.
Oh, great.
Thank you, Beth.
You're welcome. The procurement subcommittee continues to work on specifications, which for the first number of years of the executive order was our main focus. We have the procurement specifications that are on the agenda today to be finalized and to be adopted as tentative approvals. And we also have over 9 specifications that are still under development that we're working on, and we add to those every year. So some of the ones that we're working on now are office furniture, lamps, flooring, fleet vehicle maintenance, high-end publications, sustainable landscaping, generic language on product stewardship, a set of Department of Transportation specifications, and remanufactured toner cartridges is some of the things we're working on. But we've also begun in the last year or so to really understand that we need to focus on the contracts also themselves and greening contracts and identifying, and this is a very important, powerful tool, identifying those products that are green that are already on state contracts. And some state contracts like office supplies or the maintenance, repair, and operation are big catalog contracts that have a mix of products on them, and there's a lot of opportunity there to try to identify what's green and give the purchasing agents a little more guidance on how to choose those products. So one of the priorities for this coming year is to enter into a renewed green cleaning contract with the Northeast Multi-State group that's led by Massachusetts. We're hoping they're planning to do a full renewal by December, and we're planning to join them in that and have it be a little more robust number of New York State vendors on that contract. We're also looking to identify the green products that are on the office supply contract and on the maintenance, repair, and operation contract. And some of the other contracts that we'll be looking at is the zero-emission vehicles is something that OGS is looking at now, carpet, light bulbs, and thinking about coming up with some generic packaging language that could be put in all requests for bid. And we're very excited. We've had some great, very constructive meetings with the new head of procurement at OGS, Sergio Panecke, who came from New York City and has some great ideas about greening our operations and procurement here in New York State. So it's been a really fun group to work with. Almost everybody here is part of the procurement subcommittee, and I thank everyone for their hard work. The different working group heads will be presenting on their specifications, and I thank all those folks who took the lead, because you always have to have a lead to make these things happen. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Beth. And we have one late arrival to the subcommittee, and that is sustainability coordinators. Jody? Sorry you weren't on the agenda.
That's okay.
But you're still here.
I should have spoken up sooner. Just a really quick recap. The Sustainability Coordinator Subcommittee is probably the most informal of the subcommittees because it strives to connect all of the best practices and the spirit of the sustainability coordinators. I think one of the most incredible pieces of the executive order, which is not captured in language in the executive order, is the fact that it opened a door for agencies and authorities to work together for the first time in, from what I understand, was a very long time. And the changes have been, I feel, dramatic. What originally occurred is we worked with sustainability coordinators to try and have meetings to learn how to work on sustainability planning. We even talked about having a wiki-like forum for exchanging information early on. It has backed off from that level of focused intent to being pretty much a green bulletin, which is put out to about 100 sustainability coordinators every week. And that green bulletin has resources and tips, some of which are out of my little brain, and some of them are presented to me by other sustainability coordinators. And that email outreach has, we have 3 or 4 new people who have signed on to receive those. I've gotten word that they are being redistributed through the agencies and authorities, although we haven't tracked that. And I also have fielded questions, particularly one today on on paper and the cost of recycled paper and how come we don't accept these other avenues for paper use. So part of the role of that green bulletin is to open yet another door for sustainability coordinators to reach with their questions, and then I refocus them to other people within the interagency committee for a response. So I think it has been very successful in keeping people engaged in the work that they're doing in their own agency, and occasionally we reap really wonderful benefits when information is shared and able to be redistributed as, hey, we did this successful thing. You can duplicate that in your agency. So again, less formal, but I hope it's a groundswell that will continue whether or not EO4 continues. Thank you.
Thank you. And next on the agenda is going to be Beth Meir is going to give us a review of the second progress report that we want to accept and actually vote on today.
Yeah, I'll go.
Yes, and Darren's going to follow it on the screen.
Darren's going to have it on the screen.
Audio, visual.
We're not really going to walk through every detail since it's a lengthy report. But and Roanne stole my thunder, so the speech I created she just gave, which was lovely.
Sorry.
No, it's much
Sorry.
better coming from you. It's much more powerful.
Sorry, Beth.
It's fabulous. I'm not sure you mentioned the recycled content paper, but that has really
No,
increased
I don't
as
think I
well.
did.
So I think I'll just highlight that. So since fiscal year 08-09, the purchase of 100% recycled content copy paper has soared from 22% to 49%, almost half, and janitorial paper has gone from 34% to 70%. And those were facilitated by the very prompt issuance of statewide contracts in the summer of 2008 by OGS. Very well done there, and it shows how powerful having the specification and then having the contract together works. The other thing that I wanted to highlight is some of the green practices that agencies are following at a very high level of participation. So 85% of our reporting agencies use green cleaning practices. 80% have implemented policies to reduce energy use and are continuing to implement those policies. 70% use low or non-chemical means to manage indoor pests using integrated pest management. And 79% have an office supply reuse program. So there's a lot going on. The report is organized into two broad sections, one on operations, and I'm very proud that of all the things I've seen out there, I think EO4 is one of the most holistic of the sustainability orders. It covers both waste reduction and recycling as two separate items, and then it covers toxic use reduction and water conservation, as well as energy and renewable energy. So it really covers a very broad swath, almost everything that you can think of. Some of the agencies' sustainability plans I've seen have a slightly different wiggle on it. Like a lot of the SUNYs also have food as a separate item, like the whole idea of how you're going to green your food operations. But generally speaking, I think EO4 is very holistic and broad. I'm very proud of that. The second part of the report focuses on procurement and the kinds of specifications we've developed, the kind of purchasing we've done, and also the actual, some of the statistics on that, and then the challenges. So each of these sections has challenges. A challenge section that talks about some of the difficulties, especially over time. Some people in leased spaces have had a little harder time. If they don't have access to the waste contract, for example, it's maybe a little harder for them to audit their waste. On the procurement side, there was always an initial struggle, very interesting to me, and paper followed this pattern, and then cleaning products followed this pattern. The very first year that we had EO4 and the EO4 report, there was a fair amount, not a huge, but maybe 20% of agencies saying, this is a problem, they're not working in our copiers, it's more expensive, there's something going on. And then the second year out, maybe one or two agencies, and the third year out, no comments at all. And cleaning followed somewhat the same pattern. The first year out, 2009-10, we saw a little bit more of complaints, and by 2011-12, there was only one agency complaining about cleaning products not working. And so there's a culture change that happens as staff get more used to using the product and not needing to use more. The initial complaints about cleaning products were that they cost more and then you have to use more. And then some of the other agencies that had done training were saying, no, actually, we're using less, and we're using less different kinds of products, and it's not costing us more. And that trend, fortunately, has happened over time, that more and more agencies agree with that point of view instead of the opposite point of view. So we're seeing some really nice trends there in the challenges section, and it's really good that we collect this information from the agencies. I want to say that it's a lot of work to read these reports from the agencies, but it's very illuminating, because we're getting them from all over the state, 80 or more reports, and, New York State is vast. I mean, this covers all of the SUNYs, the Metropolitan Transportation Authority, Bridges and Tunnels, all the different parts of that agency, NYPA. It's a very comprehensive report, and it's a big state with a lot of operations. And with that, I want to recognize our representative from NYPA who came to us trying to find her parking place, I'm sure. Would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Carrie Jane King, I'm Sustainability Manager at NIPA. It's nice to be here.
Welcome.
It's nice to have you here. Thank you.
So with no further ado, actually, I'd like to open it to the floor for anyone that has comments. I have been working, I worked a little bit over the weekend, not too bad, making the different formatting the same, all the headings the same, and I've got my public affairs folks doing a final edit of that too, just to make sure it's really clean. But we're open to any comments you may have. We weren't planning to walk through every part of the report unless someone has a burning desire to change language, but we've got it here if you want to.
Any questions, comments, concerns?
No?
I'd like to entertain a motion to accept the report.
So moved.
So moved? A second?
Second.
Heather? Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
The report is accepted. And Beth, thank you very much, and thanks to everyone who really worked very hard on this report. And I know it's been a labor of love also, not just
It has,
work.
and I have
Yes.
to call out some of my co-authors. So again, they're going to sound familiar because it's a team of us that do a lot of this. But Darren DeRocha, who did a lot of the editing, Jody Smith-Anderson, Kathy Macri, Heather Saunders, Rob Peretti, who helped write the cleaning products section, Deb Jackson and Gary Filan, who did a lot of the data collection and cranking on the waste side. And thanks again to Howard Zwickel, who read every single word and had these incredible markups, just lovely, lovely thing. So I think it's been really a great process, and I'm very, very proud of being able to release it now. And I got it down to
now I know
50
why you
pages over the
retired.
weekend. I'm happy about that. Oh, and to Roanne, who asked us for more tables, and the tables look fabulous. Really great. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. I think tables they provide a display of good information, so I think
Yeah, I think it's a lot easier for
yes, for people
for
to
readers.
see,
Yep.
for readers,
Yep.
right. And just the casual looker, too, so
Yeah.
it's a good thing. Okay, well, Beth, now we're moving towards the review of the tentatively approved specifications that have been posted for public comment. Beth, I understand that we're going to have explanations, and then you're going to explain, and then we need a vote for final approval,
Yep,
correct?
Yep, and if I could, I'm going to group the first 5 of these, I'll read them out together. Composting toilets, these first set of specs were all ones that were tentatively approved by the Interagency Committee, posted for public comment, and we received public comment on 2 of them, but the first 5, and I'll read them out, composting toilets, electric hand dryers, motion-sensitive light switches, photovoltaic solar systems, and toilets themselves as compared to composting toilets. This is why we enjoy green procurement. Received no comments, and I think that's actually because most of them were written by the wonderful Jody Smith-Anderson
And team.
and they were perfect to begin with. But I would like to ask you, Roanne, to put a motion on the floor to accept these. There really isn't much more to discuss.
Okay, we'll accept a motion to accept the first 5 that Beth Meir outlined for approval, from tentative to final approval.
So moved.
So moved. Can I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Kathy? And all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, I think that was unanimous, so all 5 have been accepted. Thank you, and they will go into final approval. And now you'll deal with some F
So,
and G acoustical.
Acoustical ceilings. Jody Smith-Anderson was the lead on that, and we do have a late change. Jody discovered early today that the draft we were sending out was not exactly the draft that was the final. The comments received on this, and Jody's going to discuss them, were not major. They weren't very substantive, but Jody's going to walk
Thank
us
you.
through.
And Darren's gonna
Passing
distribute
out the
them.
new draft, and Jody's going to walk us through the small changes that were made to this specification in order to move towards approval. Jody, you have the floor.
Yes, okay, so I guess we'll start right off the bat. What we adopted some of the changes, and again, they weren't substantive. They were pretty much clarifying some language and also dealing with a few things that were duplicative throughout the document. One of the first changes that you will see between what's being distributed now and what you received is just that, I got to make sure I get them in the right order here. Under the background information, one of the comments was that we could refer to a standard that is already established, or we could keep the background information as we had with some small changes. One is that the information we had at the time that this specification was originally written was that rock wool was still identified as a possible carcinogen, but that was revised, and so that statement has been removed from the specification. It is not listed anymore by the International Agency Research and the National Toxicology Program as a possible carcinogen. So we removed that sentence, and that's pretty much the only change to the wet-pressed mineral fiber tiles and panels. We did change a title. We had it listed as perlite ceiling tiles, but to be more clear, it has to be indicated as non-wet formed perlite ceiling tiles. That's just an industry tweak. Under the fiberglass ceiling panels, earlier we were much more definitive about certain levels of recycled content and reclaimed glass fiber. Even in the time when we were writing the specification, the industry changed, and we were able to be slightly more aggressive, but we also didn't list them as bulleted points. We said that at least one manufacturer offers the closed-loop ceiling tile reclamation program. That was an informational piece in the spec, and that fiberglass ceiling panels are available with up to 90% recycled content. I would suspect that even in the last year that availability has increased, but that statement will remain true for forever. So we're not causing any risk with that. Then we moved under our definition, just before the definition, sorry. Under the PVC covering or scrubbable paint finish, we reduced the information in that section because we duplicated the note about providing sufficient ventilation. That's covered later in the document, so we just removed that piece about VOCs and sufficient ventilation. And you'll see that later in the document. Definitions pretty much all remain the same. We spelled out ceiling attenuation class. That was, I think, the one change we made in the definitions section. Let me move to the next piece of paper. We did also remove gypsum wallboard. That was listed as one of the, as kind of a description of under the definitions. And it's not necessary because that's not a ceiling panel or a ceiling tile. So that was too much information for this spec, and we just stripped that definition right out. Under affected entities are encouraged to, that's where we put back in the information about effective and sufficient ventilation. That's to deal with volatile organic compounds. If a product has VOC levels that are of any concern, it's important to have proper ventilation and also to sequence the work so that you're not absorbing any additional VOCs in the process. And we put in a piece about seeking to, this is affected entities are encouraged to. I'm sorry, I skipped to the last page. I'll go back. Under affected entities are encouraged to, it's provide effective and sufficient ventilation. And then we also added the piece about specifying ceiling tiles and panels from product manufacturers that operate a ceiling tile recycling program available for use throughout the state of New York. Now, these are just encouragement statements and support. The goal, the overriding goal of the specifications is to say what's available now and be clear with people what can be ordered, and then also to say what they should be aware of in the hope that by informing the market and by informing state purchasers, we will move in that direction eventually without any burden of requirement under that encourage to section. And now I'm going to skip back. I'm sorry for that little paper. That's why I don't use paper very often. I get too confused. So under the specifications, what we did add under the shall section, we added that ceiling tiles, except for composite wood ceilings, shall be tested and evaluated in accordance with California Department of Public Health standard method. And that was a request as one of the comments that came in. That's one testing thing that was added. And then an indication that humidity requirements need to be on our radar as well as part of the specification. Those were both comments that were requested by people commenting to the draft specifications. And then otherwise, no changes to the spec.
Okay, I'd like to entertain, with those changes, still like to entertain a motion to move acoustical ceilings specifications that were posted for public comment to final approval. So I'm going to ask for a motion.
So moved?
A second?
Second.
Thank you. And all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, it sounds unanimous to me, I think. So it's so moved and approved, so acoustical ceiling tiles will move to final approval. Next, we'll go to carpet and carpet tile. I guess we have some comments and some compromise language proposed.
Yep.
Okay,
So
Beth?
of the specs that we posted for public comment, carpet turned out to be the most controversial. We got 14 separate comments from 27 entities. It included 15 consumer health and environmental justice organizations, 5 labor organizations, 1 chemical manufacturer, 2 chemical industry associations, 2 carpet manufacturers, Tandis and Interface, and the Carpet and Rug Institute, CRI, as well as 2 individual citizens. So we thought about this very much in detail with the procurement subcommittee, prepared outstanding issues in a response to comments, and basically the comments were mostly around 3 main issues. One was whether or not, and I'll list them off first and then I'll discuss them. One was whether or not to retain or strengthen the encouragement to avoid PVC, polyvinyl chloride, in the backing of carpet. One was whether or not to retain the encouragement to avoid styrene butadiene latex in the backing of carpet. And the third was whether to retain the requirement, not the encouragement, but the requirement that carpet meet the NSF Platinum standard, which is the new California Gold standard. So those were the 3 things that were commented on. On the first, the PVC and backing, the environmental organizations and others asked us to strengthen the encouragement to a requirement. The carpet manufacturers and the chemical associations asked us not to have the encouragement at all. The concern about PVC is that the manufacture of it requires the use of a known carcinogen, vinyl chloride, and a reasonably anticipated to be human carcinogen, ethylene dichloride. And it also uses as an additive a developmental and reproductive toxin phthalates, the group of different kinds of phthalates. All 4 vendors currently on the OGS carpet contract offer carpet without PVC in the backing, including Interface. But Interface, which is really a very green company, I don't know how many of you know about it, but we've heard speeches from the former CEO, who's now passed away, from Interface, who really was strong on recycling and recycled content. Interface still uses PVC in a lot of its backing. I actually spoke with folks from Interface. I spoke with a lot of folks from the carpet industry and folks who understood the market. And I think they're interested in moving away from PVC, but they haven't done so entirely yet. And of course, this was a couple years ago that I spoke with them. But in the end, we decided that while it was important to retain the encouragement, it was not quite ripe yet enough to have the requirement. And so we're keeping the language that was in the draft spec, which is encouraging purchasers to avoid PVC and backing. They can do that with the offerings that are on state contract now, which is, I think, a good solution. So that was our resolution of the first issue. The second issue is about an encouragement to avoid something called styrene butadiene latex. That is made with a reasonably anticipated carcinogen styrene and a known carcinogen 1,3-butadiene. Here we wanted to keep the encouragement. It's not used widely, but we wanted to keep the encouragement to avoid it because we're concerned that if we move away from PVC, and we're trying to have folks move away from PVC, that one of the things they may do is increase the use of styrene butadiene. So that's one of the reasons we wanted to put it in and wanted to keep it. So that's going to stay. So that's the number 2. On the NSF Platinum, that's the new California Gold Standard. The California Gold Standard for carpet is what our original requirement was in our first drafts of this. A lot of other states have adopted this. It's widely used as a green standard. All the vendors on our state contract offer the NSF Platinum. About equal number of offerings on our state contract are platinum as they are gold. And it includes the California emissions testing requirements. It requires that no PBDE flame retardants are in the carpet, and also has increased levels of recycled content. And we felt that was a valid and valuable requirement, so we retained that requirement. So those were the major comments. Some very other minor things were happening there, like the definition of PVC that we modified somewhat, but that's about it. And the procurement subcommittee thought about these things and put forward the draft as you've seen it for the interagency committee to review and hopefully approve.
Okay. Any questions, comments, concerns? I'd like to have a motion to accept the carpet and carpet tile tentatively approved specifications, move to final approval. Motion?
Yep.
Jody, second? Anyone? Heather, thank you. All in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
The motion is approved, so we're done with that area. Okay. We're going to move to a review of new specifications for tentative approval and posting, and we're going to be looking at 5 different areas, and I'm going to ask Heather Saunders from NYSERDA, Kathy Macri from Environmental Facilities Corporation, Beth Muir again, and Peter Pettit from DEC, and we're going to be talking about reusable bags, solar thermal panels, shower heads, mulch, and pavement sealer. Now,
We're going to start with reusable bags.
Okay,
Actually,
thank you, Beth.
Peter Pettit couldn't be here
Okay.
today, so Deb is actually going to present.
Oh, okay. Thank
So
you.
we have to bring Debbie back to the...
Deb?
You got to come back up, Deb.
Well, and we could have put it
You
right
can
there.
sit next to me, Deb. I'll sit next to Deb. You can sit
Yeah,
next to me.
and you can,
And just remember, we have to talk about the packaging language
Yes.
at the very end, because that's...
I have a listed. Okay. Good afternoon again. I'm here to give a little bit of background on reusable bags. Everybody pretty much knows what reusable bags are, but there's never been really a good definition. And we do have a law in place in New York State, the plastic bag reduction law, reuse and reduction law, which mandated that grocery stores and retail stores over 10,000 square feet and chain stores over 5,000 square feet with a chain of 5 or more has to have a plastic bag collection program in place, and they also have to sell reusable plastic bags. We don't have a definition of reusable plastic bags. New York City did have a law in place before our state law went into effect, which the state law did supersede, and they did have a definition. And so a lot of the information that you see in front of you on the reusable plastic bag is from the New York City law that was in place. And I'm just going to go through it really quickly. Basically, the goal is to have something that's consistent. A lot of agencies purchase bags to distribute at various events and those types of things. And it would be nice to be able to make sure that everybody is fairly consistent on what they're calling a reusable bag. The definitions, I don't need to go over. The specifications are pretty much some of the information that California did, some of the information from New York City's law, and basically just covers, what durable means and how reusable a bag should be. One of the other constraints that we had was sometimes manufacturers will make the handles out of a different material than the bag, and that makes end-of-life dealings with it more difficult. So some consistency and that type of stuff is very important. The main things that we wanted to make sure of when we were doing the specs for the plastic bags is, one, or the reusable bags, is toxics. We did not want, especially stuff that's being imported from other countries. We've had issues in the past with them failing toxicity for lead and cadmium, is the two major ones that usually fail. And we wanted to make sure that anything that is imported into the United States and imported into New York State comply with our packaging regulations and laws. Recycled content is always a big issue, especially with me. We like to have a recycled content in all the things that we purchase in New York State, so having that in the bag specs is very important. The required printing is important, and also the cleaning information is not all that necessary, but it's nice to have. And we had a lively discussion on the wording for that. And then basically at the end we're talking about packaging. And Beth mentioned that packaging is an issue that we are very adhered to at DEC. And extended producer responsibility is something that's very important. And trying to get some wording in on contracts that make the manufacturer responsible for some of the packaging that they develop is very important. And one instance is that I'm going to give you, it's a little bit aside from the plastic bags, is our recent contracts with computers. We had computers being delivered to the DEC. We thought were going to be compliant with packaging requirements, with not having disposable packaging, and they did not show up that way. So we're really keen on making sure that there is wording in the contracts to deal with that. And Beth can probably go into a little bit more detail.
Well, and there's two things I want to raise about the packaging. Roanna, I guess it's okay, I can talk. Roanna's presiding, no, it's fine. One is that we took the liberty of taking this packaging language and adding it to the rest of the tentative, of the specs to be tentatively approved, except for mulch, because mulch is sort of different, and it already had language on bulk packaging and buying in bulk and that kind of thing. So that's one thing we want to have the interagency committee consider. That's why we're doing reusable bags first, because we're proposing that we add this packaging language, which was done to the drafts you've seen, to all of the specs to be tentatively approved. We didn't want to add them to anything else because we wanted it to have public comment. The second thing is that it's listed as a hierarchy. So New York State, and it's all an encouragement. New York State encourages the use of bulk packaging, the use of reusable packaging, the use of innovative packaging that reduces the amount of packaging, which I think is a really great idea. Mm-hmm. And then packaging made from recyclable content. And it meets or exceeds certain minimum post-consumer content levels. And then the final bullet is the take-back, which is encouraging that all packaging remain the property of the supplier and not become the property of the affected state entity who's purchasing the item. One thing we missed, and this is what happens in our last review of all these things for finality, is we missed saying that the packaging itself is made from recyclable content or compostable content. And one of the things that really struck me when I was reading through the draft and thinking about this was we have a local company called Ecovative in Green Island who makes packaging out of mushrooms. It's a very cool place for anyone who has not gone there. They won a pollution prevention award, actually an environmental excellence award, this 2 years ago in New York State. Mm-hmm. And I would hate to put out anything on packaging that did not also encourage the use of their product. And that's a great idea. So I've checked with all the solid waste folks at DEC, and we'd like your permission to add a bullet here on recyclable or compostable, that's the right word, not the biodegradable, we've talked about that, but recyclable or compostable content, if that's acceptable to folks. So if we could have two motions, maybe one on this and one on the adding of that language, and then each time we do a spec from now on, if this packaging language will be in there.
Okay, first we'll have a motion to accept the deviation from, we're adding something, correct?
Yes, we're adding
Okay.
something to the reusable bag specification.
Okay.
Yep.
So do you want to do that motion, Beth?
Sure.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Want to just
Yes,
accept?
yes,
You'll
I will
move that
move.
motion?
Yes, I will move,
Okay.
yes.
And we'll have a second?
Second.
Second? Okay, all in favor of the change to the reusable bag specification, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is carried. So that's one motion on that.
Excellent.
Now we'll need to, were you complete?
I was
Were you
complete,
finished?
absolutely.
Okay. All right, so now we'd like to accept the entire new specification for tentative approval and posting of reusable bags. So I'll take a motion on that.
A motion and a comment?
Oh, sure. You want to comment?
I just want to applaud the people who put this together, because especially the encouragement of the packaging remaining the property of the producer is powerful in a way that hasn't been addressed in other specs, and it's encouraging that it will be. I think that puts an awareness into the systems that hasn't been there before, and I want to just say, beautiful.
Great.
And I'll move.
You'll do the second. Right, okay. That's the second, so we will take a vote now on the entire specification that was given to us by Deb. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you. Thank you so much for your work. Solar thermal panels.
And that's Heather Saunders.
Heather?
Okay.
Okay.
Can you put the microphone a little closer to you, Heather?
Yes. Thanks. Okay, so our technical expert that helped with this, Bob Carver, could not be here today, so I will definitely do my best. But I want to thank the team that helped us at NYSERDA to lead this spec. So several folks were involved in that, including DEC, Bob. Thank you, Bob Lazara. Our goal here was to ensure that there was a high-quality product and also high-quality installers. Without both of those, the investment wouldn't be realized. So for the product itself, we specified certain efficiency levels for our collectors and included language on warranties so that there was an assurance that the product would last long enough for the payback. We also specified a certain type of glass, its impact resistance to hail and other type of weather conditions to make sure it would hold up for New York's weather, any kind of weather that we might experience. We also really targeted, on the second page, the standard setting and certifying programs, folks that actually had specific solar thermal training that could install these systems, and they're outlined. Everyone can read all about it. I don't have to go over them, but if folks have specific questions, I certainly will. We also work to address environmental impacts. So in the specification itself, we talked about no lead used in solder. For a long time, there had been a history of lead in solder and leaching into the water. So we wanted to make sure that was specified to not be used. We also did touch upon the people that are going to be installing the systems. In one of the bullets, they should be NAVCEP certified solar thermal installers, manufactured certified thermal installers, or installers with that have completed apprenticeship programs, again, with that specific solar thermal training. And the glazing is an important piece as well. We specified the soda lime glass. This was the impact-resistant glass for the hail. Minimum efficiency, glycol, which is the medium that's used to transfer the medium here, and we specified food-grade glycol, so not a chemical. It was really important that it's food-grade, and later on you'll see an encouragement to use corn glycol, but that is an encouragement, it's not a requirement. Another piece is that we wanted the systems to last for at least 20 years or more, and a 10-year minimum warranty be provided by the installers. So again, we thought that was a really important piece to make sure that the money is justified that's being spent. We also added in VOC language content as an encouragement to not use insulation products that have binders with high VOC content. We just added in some language on not using PEX material in piping because of the high pressures associated with solar thermal systems. It's really important that the piping be stainless steel or copper, and if it's not, there could be a lot of problems with that not holding up. So it's important that it be durable. And those are pretty much the main things that we wanted to focus on here. We believe that by covering all these different components, there's still plenty of product available, and that's pretty much it. Any questions?
Any questions? Thank you, Heather. Thank you for standing in. I'll entertain a motion and a second for accepting solar thermal panels for tentative approval and posting. So I'll take a motion. Move. Second?
Second.
Second. Jody. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's been accepted. Okay, solar thermal panels. Shower heads.
That's Kathy.
Kathy?
So, New York is a water-rich state, so we don't often get too concerned about water conservation, but potable water is a resource that costs us money to treat and to pump, and hot water also has an energy cost associated with it, and so it's important to have low-flow appliances in place as often as we can. And shower heads are, although most of us don't think about it, are used in many state agency locations in SUNY dorms and training facilities and hospitals and so forth. So this specification for shower heads would require a lower flow through the shower head than is currently required by the Energy Policy Act of 1992. The WaterSense is a certification program sponsored by EPA, and so these low-flow shower heads that we're encouraging maintain a 2.0 gallons per minute flow. And initially, when I was working on water conservation, this was a great concern to many people that their showers would not be have a strong enough flow to clean themselves or to be comfortable. But we're finding that these are very effective and they're very comfortable. And there's currently, I believe, 1,900 low-flow showerhead options available with this certification, which was not the case several years ago. But not only are they available, but they're increasingly being used in residential and situations and by the public. So the other parts of the specifications that I should probably point out is that the specification would require the shower heads to be impact and vandal resistant and compliant with ADA, American Disability Act requirements. Affected entities are encouraged to replace all standard shower heads with the low-flow shower heads in accordance with the planned maintenance schedule. So this wouldn't be any more costly because these specifications would be used as needed as replacements were being conducted. It is also recommended that facilities use in-place testing if they're concerned about the ability of the shower heads to be useful, and the shower heads that are specified can also be fixed or the type that you take off and are handheld. And I see that the new packaging language has been included, which is fantastic, very important. Are there any questions?
I think just the question of, or adding to the agenda, that we add that new language on the recyclable and compostable aspect of the packaging.
Okay. So do you want to have two votes on that, to add that, or
I don't know. How do people, what do you think?
I don't think we need to because we accepted it once. Is that acceptable to everyone here?
Yes.
Okay. Any further questions or comments on the shower head specifications? Okay, I will entertain a motion to accept, so moved. A second? Jody? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Showerheads has been accepted for new specifications for tentative approval and posting. Now we'll go to mulch. Thank you, everyone.
Yep, mulch will be me.
Okay,
But I
Beth?
want to acknowledge the lead of our work group, which is Gary Feynman, sitting over there. I just came in for the final closure of all controversial issues. And who knew? Mulch actually has controversy. You would not have thought that mulch would be controversial. So the purpose of the mulch specification is mostly to actually encourage the use of mulch, because mulch is part of sustainable landscaping. It helps conserve water use. And it actually also helps plants a great deal. I'm a big gardener, but it really helps the plants thrive because they themselves have the heat. The heat is moderated for them, and also water is moderated for them. We also wanted to strongly encourage the use of on-site materials for mulch, which are probably the best of all if you've got the ability to generate on-site materials like wood chips, or I use a lot of leaves for mulch in my own garden at home. And local sources, which is a great idea too, because it's bulk and it's good to get it in a local source. It's less impact on the environment to get it. So we wanted to encourage those things. There were really just two big issues in terms of controversy at the end. And one was avoiding mulches treated with chrominated copper arsenate, CCA, or other kinds of toxic preservatives. And no one had an issue with that. It was actually the health department who kept tweaking the language for us, so we made sure the language was as broad as it was meant to be. And I think that was the last changes we made, just getting that language right on exactly what we were saying about preservatives and glues and CCA, because CCA is not the only preservative. And the health department was really great at looking at that and making sure that we were using the right language to avoid the kinds of things that folks may have added to wood mostly, but to anything else that would make it toxic for plants to be grown in it, either for the plants themselves or if there were vegetables or things that people were going to eat, impact on them. And of course, anything used in a playground with kids and stuff. So we wanted to avoid those things. As you all know, chrominated copper arsenate is not allowed in New York State playground equipment by statute in New York State. The second issue that was actually took a lot of discussion, interesting, between the horticultural folks and the folks on the committee who were interested in recycling, was the use of organic mulches for horticultural applications, and then the use of inorganic mulches, especially recycled rubber kinds of mulches, more for playground applications. And it was a big discussion, quite controversial in some ways. A little bit of a tension there you see between the recycled folks and the organic folks is kind of interesting. But the horticultural use, we were encouraging, we're not requiring it, but we're strongly encouraging the use of organic mulch, just because that organic mulch will break down, become part of the soil, will actually create soil for the plants as you use it. And the inorganic mulches, like for example recycled rubber, is a very nice application in a playground to break people's falls. You'll see it like around playground equipment and things like that. And that's got a really great impact-based side of it, because it's cutting down on that kind of thing going to the landfill, and you're reusing it and using it well. The other issue that wasn't really controversial, we just had to address it, which is fascinating to me, was avoiding mulches with the ability to spread invasive species. Mm-hmm. So you really want to be careful about using hay that has seed heads in it. Straw is, who knew, hay without seed heads. And you want to avoid both insects and you want to avoid the seeds. So it's fascinating. So that's how we came out with mulch. And I'm telling you, this was a very detailed, intense discussion about mulch. And we had great help. I can't list all the members of the committee. Bob helped to convene it. But some of the folks that were really helpful were the landscaping folks from DOT. They were fabulous. And ESD, Jim Gilbert from ESD was really active, and he's been so, he built a whole career on finding markets for recycled content, so he felt pretty passionate about it, and we had a lot of passionate people. Yeah, exactly. So that's what we came out with. excuse me, that's where we came out with that, and I feel like it's a very balanced approach and a nice guideline for folks using mulch.
Thank you. Any comments before we go to vote? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to accept mulch for new specifications for tentative approval and posting.
So moved.
Thank you, Heather. Second, Jody. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
It's carried, so mulch will be posted and has been tentatively approved. Our last review of new specifications will be on the subject matter of pavement sealer.
That's going to be Bob Lazara from DEC.
Bob, okay. Bob, thank you.
You're welcome. Pavement sealers, under the covered products, you find that we're looking to cover products that are used that are sprayed on or painted on asphalt pavement. They're used to maintain the asphalt pavement in driveways, parking lots, and to protect it from cracks that develop over time. The goal of the specification is to reduce the amount of polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons known as PAHs. The PAHs are under the definitions, and they're a group of over 100 chemicals that are formed during the incomplete burning of organic substances. We list in the background portion of the specification that that the EPA has found PAHs to be probable human carcinogens, and that's why we're regulating it. The specification itself is one line, and it gives latitude on purchases. It states where such products meet form, function, and utility requirements to the maximum extent practicable. Affected entities shall purchase alternative-based sealers. We define alternative-based sealers under definition as any sealer that does not contain coal tar and is used on asphalt or concrete surfaces, including roads, driveways, parking lots, or other paved surfaces. We also included in the specification the standard packaging requirements that you're hearing about.
Thank you. Any comments or questions before we go to a vote? Nope, seeing none. I'll take a motion for pavement sealers for the new specifications for tentative approval and posting.
I'll move.
Beth Meir, and a second. Jody has seconded. And all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion has carried, and pavement sealer will be tentative approved and posted for hopefully final approval at some point. That ends our specifications. That ends our discussion on the EO4 and EO18 report. I want to thank each and every one of you for taking time this afternoon to discuss this as we on the eve of Earth Day. This is a great opportunity for us to demonstrate what we have accomplished under Governor Cuomo's tutelage, what the state has really accomplished in these areas. So I am very pleased to have been here to lead this discussion in this meeting, and I want to thank Beth, but I also want to thank your Commissioner Joe Martens for his leadership in this area. And I, too, want to thank my staff, Ann Phillips and Darren DeRosia, and I know Bruce is here from Procurement, Bruce Hallenbeck, and Amanda Boomhauer from my staff, and I think Joe Brill might have left, but we had our PIO involved. And again, I want to thank Howard Zwickel, because I do know from the day I came into OGS that this was one of his driving forces. He was one of the driving forces for getting this report done and getting it streamlined quite a bit. So we would have it read and we would have the reporting done. So we're very pleased about that. So thank you. And if anybody has any final comments, I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn unless someone would like to make a comment.
I just want to thank you, Roanne, for coming today, because it makes it so much more exciting to have the commissioner with
Thank
us.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I thought it was important that we do that. It's a very important document, and I'm very glad that we've finalized it and it's on its way. So
Thank you.
thank you. So with that, I will take a motion to adjourn. So moved, a second? Second. Motion to adjourn. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.